Saying it doesn't make it real. The mind doesn't move if it doesn't truly feel the weight of what's said. For a long time, I was talking like I had changed, but inside, I stayed exactly the same. I would wake up and recite these elaborate scripts of who I wanted to be, convinced that the sheer volume of my internal dialogue would somehow manifest a new reality or something close. I spent years in that loop, the intellectualization of progress without the physical manifestation to match. I was a master of the theory of me, but a complete stranger to the practice. You see, my voice would echo in the chambers of my skull, convincing me that intention was enough. But the room remained cold, the clock kept ticking, and I was still the person I claimed to have left behind months ago. The disconnect wasn't just a gap, it was a canyon, and I was trying to bridge it with nothing but loud whispers. I finally understood that you can repeat a lie until you're blue in the face, but that won't make it true. The mind only believes what it actually sees you do. I was stuck in the cage of my own head, realized I had to move, not just speak. The light flickering above me is like my own consciousness, sporadic, buzzing, and revealing the grime I tried to hide with fancy phrasing. I used to think that if I could just find the right mantra, the right combination of syllables, my neurochemistry would simply bow to my will. It doesn't work that way. The subconscious is a ruthless auditor. It doesn't care about your marketing campaign. It looks at the ledger of your daily movements and counts the times you hit snooze or looked away from the mirror. I had to stop the broadcast and start the labor to learn that the body is the primary teacher of the mind, and until the body moves through the resistance, the mind remains a prisoner of its own comfortable delusions. I stood on the inside telling myself I was that guy, strong and enough. But the moment action was required, I went dry. A voice in the back of my head kept calling my bluff because the feeling didn't match the script. It's a hollow feeling, standing in a corridor of your own making, listening to the wind howl through the spaces where your character should be. I would rehearse these moments of heroism, imagining how I would react when the pressure mounted. I had built this version of myself in my imagination, a figure of stoicism and unshakable resolve. But when the actual world asked for a down payment on that confidence, I found my pockets were empty. The internal bluff is the most dangerous game you can play, because eventually, you have to prove it. You realize that you've been betting with counterfeit currency, and the house, your own integrity, always knows. I was trying to feel like a victor before I had ever stepped onto the field, and the dissonance was deafening. The gap grew wide between the person I claimed to be and the one who actually showed up. I was building a script, not a life. Every thought was being checked by a mental code. If it doesn't feel real through action, it gets left behind. That metallic thud you hear? That's the sound of another empty promise hitting the floor. I became obsessed with the aesthetics of growth, the language of the new me, while the old me was still running the machinery behind the curtain. I had to realize that words are just placeholders for reality. If you use them too long without filling them with substance, they become ghosts. I was haunted by my own rhetoric. I started to despise the sound of my own aspirations because they lacked the scars of effort. The mental code became stricter. I stopped allowing myself to use words like undisciplined or motivated, as if they were fixed traits. I had to view them as temporary states that only existed in the moment of their execution. If I wasn't doing it right now, in this silence, then I wasn't that person. I looked back at my past and saw a wall built of every time I folded, and every word I didn't back up. Those failures don't vanish just because you start talking differently. The pressure got loud, and the version of me I spoke about couldn't stand the heat. You can try to paint over a crumbling foundation, but the storm outside doesn't care about the color of the walls. It tests the structural integrity. Every time I had opted for the easy path, I had negotiated with my own standards. I was adding a brick to that wall of shame. It stood tall behind me, casting a long shadow over every new resolution I tried to make. I realized I couldn't just walk away from it. I had to dismantle it brick by brick. I had to acknowledge that my history was a valid data set that my mind was using to predict my future behavior. And if I wanted a different prediction, I needed to provide different data. I had to stop being a narrator of a fictional future and start being a historian of a productive present. That's when the truth hit deeper than any affirmation. I saw it clearly. I don't become what I say, I become what I do. My mind was waiting for proof in my actions, not more words from my mouth. That single note, it's the clarity of a singular focus. The affirmations were a noise-canceling headphone for the truth. but the truth eventually breaks through. It's not about manifesting through thought, it's about manifesting through friction. The friction of the hands against the task, the feet against the pavement, the will against the fatigue. I stopped trying to convince myself I was ready. I accepted that I might never feel ready. And that readiness was actually a luxury I couldn't afford. I had to operate in the raw, unpolished reality of my own inadequacy. The mind doesn't need to be persuaded. It needs to be shown. It's an observational organ, watching you like a stranger would, judging your character not by your intent, but by your output. So I stopped going big. I went small and kept it real. I didn't claim to be fearless anymore. I just moved, despite the fear. I said, maybe I can try, and took a single step, then another. The gravel under my feet is the sound of reality. It's messy, it's uneven, and it's tactile. I abandoned the grand visions that were so large they paralyzed me. I traded the mountain for the next 6 inches in front of my face. Because I realized that my ego was the one demanding big changes. Because big changes supposedly make for better stories. But small changes make for better lives. I started with things so trivial they felt insulting to my ambition. Waking up 5 minutes earlier, finishing one uncomfortable task, speaking one honest sentence. But these were the first things my mind actually believed. That's because they were undeniable. They weren't visions, they were events. I stopped trying to be a hero and started trying to be a reliable worker in the factory of my own soul. As thought turned into action, action turned into proof. Later, that proof hit my mind and started shaping a new truth. The loop was building, getting stronger with every round. Belief was finally catching up because I kept showing up. This pulse, this is the rhythm of momentum. It starts as a faint vibration, almost imperceptible, but it grows with every consistent choice. I found that confidence isn't a feeling you conjure. It's a memory of success. My mind started to scan its recent history and found instances where I didn't fold. It found moments where I did exactly what I said I would do. This was the turning of the tide. The internal dialogue changed from, I hope I can do this, to, I have done this before. The narrative was no longer a plea, it was a report. I was stacking evidence against my old self, building a case for a new identity that was based on physical reality rather than desperate hope. It was quiet at first, just me and my steps. But even when I was shaky and slow, the more I moved, the more my mind began to whisper, maybe you really are growing. The birds chirping in the morning aren't celebrating a victory. They're just existing in the new day I earned. There's a profound peace in the lack of an audience. When you do it for the audience, you're still performing a script. But when you do it in the silence, you're becoming the person. I learned to love the boredom of the process, that the most significant change happens in the moments that would be edited out of a movie. It's the unremarkable Tuesday where you just do the work, or the late night where you stay true to the path when no one is watching. The growth isn't a sudden explosion. It's the slow, steady expansion of what you are capable of tolerating. My mind was no longer a critic. It was becoming an ally, tentatively acknowledging the new ground I was breaking. Now I'm stacking my steps, building it up brick by brick. Every time I show up, the life I'm living starts to match the words I started with. There is no longer any inner debate, as the proof has established what the words never could. This heartbeat is the clock now, but it's full and steady. The architecture of my life is no longer made of scaffolding and blueprints, but of stone. The bricks are my habits. The mortar is my persistence. I don't have to argue with my doubts anymore because I can point to the wall. I can say, look at what is there. Doubt thrives in the abstract, but it dies in the presence of concrete results. The energy I used to spend on self-persuasion is now channeled into further construction. I've reached a point where the person I am and the person I want to be are finally occupying the same space. The dialogue has ended because the action is sufficient. The weight of the words has finally been matched by the weight of my life. I don't need to explain anymore. I don't say who I am. I just move that way. You don't become what you say in your mind. You become what you do over time. Don't tell yourself who you are. Show it. Stepping into that sunlight isn't a metaphor. It's a destination. I've left the sterile room, the flickering neon, and the hollow corridors behind. They were necessary stages of the awakening, but they are no longer my home. I realize now that the most powerful thing a person can be is silent and effective. When your actions speak, your voice is secondary. I want to live in a way where my presence is the only testimony I need. It's a long road, and the work is never finished, but the foundation is solid. The script is over, the life has begun. Every second is a new opportunity to provide more proof, to lay another brick, and to move further into the light of an authentic existence. Stop talking. Start moving. Let the world see you, not hear you.